Good evening. This is the Wednesday, March 25th, 2015 meeting of the Finance Committee. 6 o'clock start tonight. We're trying to get in a doubleheader with the schools and the DPW. Our agenda tonight would be budget reviews, starting with the school department, then the DPW and all its divisions. We'll have a review and vote on some transfers, and then we'll adjourn. Also, I'll mention now, and I'll mention at the end of this meeting, that next week at this point in time, we've got the Fire Department Emergency Management and Veteran Services. So this time, Dr. Brunel is here with the school team. Good to see you, folks. And Dr. Brunel will have a presentation on the budget.
Great. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair and members of the Finance Committee. I appreciate the opportunity on behalf of the school committee to share our budget with you. I also do want to thank you as well for your support last night, as well as town meetings on the articles, and hope it will be as successful next week as well. Okay, just keep going. Okay. Yeah, it's on here, so good. Thank you. My apologies. Just to reiterate, the mission of the Auburn Public Schools is strengthening connections through rigor, relevance, and relationships. As you may be aware, it was actually in the fall of 2013 when we assembled a group of over 120 school and community members to revisit the strategic plan and actually decide and answer the question, what do we want the Auburn Public Schools to continue to be in servicing our students for the next 5 to 7 years? Our vision is to prepare students for the opportunities and challenges of a changing world. One of the items that we reviewed and reaffirmed at the meeting during the strategic planning is the core values that we have, those being student-centered decision-making, high expectations for all environments being safe and respectful, responding to needs based on data, equitable opportunities for all, and our dedication to continuous improvement. Ken Blanchard said the genuine success does not come from proclaiming our values, but from consistently putting them into daily action. We believe as a school district and on behalf of the school committee that this budget does just that. The core values, the mission, and the vision, and all of the goals as outlined in the strategic plan are those that are indicated, and you'll see evidence of throughout this budget. And we constantly asked ourselves the question, how will this impact student achievement? The school committee and leadership team started the budgeting process back in the early fall, setting priorities, those being student safety. The safety of our students is paramount, not only their physical safety, but also their emotional safety, and making sure that we're providing an academic environment that's rigorous for them. Student achievement. We are committed to educational excellence and continuous improvement. We truly believe it is our responsibility as a district to provide opportunities that assist our students in being able to make choices post-graduation to do whatever it is that they would like. Transitions. I mentioned this last night, that this is certainly going to be the summer of transitions this year, opening a new middle school, merging 2 schools at the current middle school, now renamed Swanson Road Intermediate School, transitioning Mary D. to the Packagug School, and ultimately closing JB and Mary D. Other priorities were class size. It's important that we maintain a healthy class size at all levels. We have that at 25 students per elementary, and it varies slightly by middle and high school. Technology, we've made a strong commitment not only educationally but through our strategic plan to be sure that we are putting the latest technology in our students' hands, believing that it has the ability to not only further engage them but also to assist them in their achievement. Textbooks, we will be implementing a new mathematics series starting next year at elementary, which will have new textbooks in grades K through 8 next year. And the next one that we'll be looking at is English language arts following that. Other priorities are professional development. We can't speak to continuous improvement of our students if we're not committed to doing the same for us as adults and the educators, and that is a strong commitment that we have made. Strategic plan implementation, as I've noted, we have goals and initiatives noted under there. We have updated it. We'll meet again actually April 13th to review our progress, and those have been posted on our website. And finally, the educator evaluation system. This is a fairly new system, a couple of years old, through the Department of Elementary and Secondary Ed. Auburn really is standing out as a model for other districts, and I'm proud of the teachers and our administrators for their work in that. This really, the interconnectedness of it really does speak to the strengthening the connections. It's really about when all of us work together that we really build our capacity and help all achieve at high levels. As we've made this budget, as you know, the governor's budget is out, but we start this process very early on in the fall. So we made some assumptions as we went through. First, we used our October 1 counts. Those are the official reporting that we do to the state in terms of how many students we have at each grade level and in each grade in total population. Those numbers have changed slightly, but they will throughout the year. We've used as offsets all anticipated grant funds, whether it's through Title I, Title IIA, the IDEA grant. As we always do, we use those as offsets, and you'll see a total when we get a little further into the budget presentation. We intend to use our Medicaid receipts. We'll be seeking $124,000 at the annual town meeting. That's been the value that we've had for the past couple of years. Plus, we're saving some carryover funds from 15, the goal being to try and minimize the fiscal impact. And we'll also be having the bus fee again, $100 per student, and those applications continue to come in. We've used offsets, as we always do, in our Satellite, Galaxy, building rental, preschool, and athletic revolving accounts. We have built into our budget school choice monies that we'll take in based on 31 high school students and 15 middle school students. That money you'll see as offsets in our budget. We're anticipating circuit breaker reimbursement at 60%. That is currently an unknown figure. We think it's a safe figure for right now. We don't have any information to the contrary. And we've noted in the budget, although your copy does not have names assigned to it, all of our IAs and ABAs, we note them in their current positions, but there will be some movement based on student needs. Additional assumptions, Auburn Middle School will be transitioning to the new middle school over at 9 West Street, and some monies have been set aside in the project budget to help with the moves to that. So there should be no operating cost impact there. Julia Bancroft and Packagug will be transitioning to Swanson Road Intermediate School. We've set aside money, a sum of $10,000. We have reached out to the inmates at the Worcester County Sheriff's Department. We have a commitment for them to assist us, but we're also going to need to hire movers as well, just to assist in the many items that will need to be transitioned among schools. We've done the same for the Mary D. Stone, transitioning all of those materials to the Packagug School. We've really identified a very tight timeline in making sure that as we transition that we're taking all of the materials that teachers will need to start the year successfully. Assuming all timelines continue to be met, and I'm happy to report at our construction meeting this morning, we remain on time and on budget with our Auburn Middle School, the new middle school project. So assuming all of those are met, we anticipate that the school committee will be taking an official vote, likely sometime in this early summer, to turn back Julia Bancroft and Mary D. Stone to the towns. Those costs, because they would be on the town side, for winter, we have not carried values for oil or gas. The total budget request from the Auburn Public Schools is $23,488,154, and that represents a 2.21% increase over the current approved fiscal 15 budget of $22,980,672. Important to note is offsets that total $1,996,743 have been used to minimize the impact to the operating budget and therefore the taxpayers of Auburn. We've looked at all available grant funds, school choice, Medicaid, the bus account, building rental accounts, and any receipts that we receive. Again, all done in an effort to minimize the impact of this budget. Next, I have a spreadsheet that shows the increases that the school department has received over the past several years. In fiscal 9, it actually represented a 0.6 decrease in the budget. The next year was a 0.9% increase. The following year was 0.96% increase. There was a 3.46% increase going from 12 to 13, 2.78%, 2.96%, and with this 2.21% that's been requested, that would total that would average a 1.98% increase over those years' time. Obviously, there's been variability in there. And we believe as the school committee and leadership team that these really reflect our commitment to work with the Auburn community. We are one, and really working closely with you, while also keeping true to our mission of educating and preparing students for the opportunities and challenges of a changing world. In terms of new staffing requests, and all of these are part of the 2.21%, we're seeking to add a half-time school psychologist at the elementary schools. Our students continue to present. We have terrific students and great families, but we have some students who present with some challenges, not only learning challenges, some behavioral and emotional challenges. This additional position will allow us to be sure that appropriate testing is done. At Bryn Mawr and Packagug School, our primary schools, we're seeking to add three instructional assistants. There'll be one at each school to do inclusion at kindergarten, which goes along with our co-teaching and inclusion initiative, and then one child-specific IA. That's based on a child's IEP that requires that he or she have an IA to help support them in their learning. At Swanson Road Intermediate School, we're seeking to add a tech media specialist. With our commitment to technology as outlined in the strategic plan, we need to be able to appropriately support that, not only with the hardware, but also to support teachers in terms of their learning, and to be sure that it's fully integrated and implemented into the curriculum. Swanson Road Intermediate School will have one full-time nurse, as well as what we're adding into the budget is an LPN to assist with that. We actually had a nurse recently decided to resign to move on to a job opportunity. So otherwise, we would have been eliminating a nursing position, but what we've replaced it with is an LPN. We'll now be putting about 570 students together at Swanson Road Intermediate School, and they're a little bit younger, obviously, in age. At the New Auburn Middle School, we're seeking to add a guidance counselor that would have 3 guidance counselors, guidance/adjustment counselors at the middle school, which is an appropriate level based on guidelines from guidance counselors. A half-time custodian. We want to be sure that the new middle school is open and available. We have lots of functions and community use on the weekends, and this would help to facilitate that. At Auburn High School, we're seeking to add a special education teacher. That will come at the reduction of 3 instructional assistants, though. So it's really pretty much a cost-neutral change. But this is in keeping with our co-teaching and inclusion. They currently have 3 special educators at the high school, and it makes it challenging with having the 4 grades there. We currently have a half-time adjustment counselor as part of our guidance counselor team, and we're hoping to increase that to 0.8 next year. And we're also looking to add a lacrosse program as well as a stipend for our girls ice hockey assistant coach. And then finally, a speech teacher. But that will come at a very reduced cost because we've had a speech language pathology assistant who's been working. Unfortunately, in that position, that individual is legally unable to test students. She's done a great job, but we're going to revert back to the full model. Each of these items that we have requested speak to our overarching goal of rigor, relevance, and relationship. Whether it's the AP courses and AP trainings that we provide for our teachers, the STEM programming, all certainly speak to rigor. In terms of relevance, the collaborative summer work that teachers do, the goals in our educator evaluation systems, the embedded trainings that we provide for our staff. And in terms of relationships, that's really what it comes down to at the end of the day, I think, for all of us, professionally and personally. But making sure that our teams are as strong as possible to support and provide partnerships and supports for our students. And then finally, responding to needs based on data. As I said at the beginning, it really is all about how will this, and we talked about this throughout the process, how will this impact students and their achievement? Moving forward, on Wednesday, following the continuation of the special town meeting, we will have our public hearing at 7:45 on the 1st. That's in keeping with Mass General Law, Chapter 71, Section 38N. Mr. Baker has agreed to moderate that for us again this year. We mailed out invitation to all town meeting members. We also posted it in the paper and on local cable. Our goal is to give the community ample opportunity to ask questions, and we'll actually read each line of the budget. The administrator's budget presentations have been posted on the website. We believe in transparency. We're happy to answer questions, and I offered that in my letters to town meeting members. They actually received 2 this year, once we had a little change in time, to reach out to me or any member of our department at any time with questions. It really is about maintaining the integrity of our budget, which is our goal. So in closing, Tom Landry said, "Setting a goal is not the main thing. It is deciding how you will go about achieving it and staying with that plan." So we believe in the district, we've had constancy of purpose over these past several years. We really have the goal of continuous improvement in educational excellence. We believe our students deserve nothing less. I know that we have always had your support in the past, and I appreciate that and would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great, thanks, Dr. Brunel, for your time. We're also going to, if I remember, try to add in any questions on the capital plan, too.
Absolutely.
So please don't leave before we take care of that. So right now, the town manager recommends a budget approximately, my math was 335,000 less than what's been proposed by the school department and the school committee.
Correct.
Your numbers, if I heard correctly, tie out to your school department request, correct?
So this is the request at this time, the original request that went through. The process that's usually followed is administrators' requests come in, first to myself, the assistant superintendent, and the business manager. We put together the budget. Not all items make it through at that point. Then it goes to school committee. So school committee has made a series of reductions, but currently the budget is at 2.21%.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open this up to questions. Either one of you ladies, Mallory?
Just a general question to start. Do you know approximately how many students would be in each school?
Sure. So what I would anticipate is at our primary schools, between Bryn Mawr and Packagug next year, it will range somewhere in the 260 to 280 range. There's some slight variation. Swanson Road Intermediate School will be about 570. The new middle school will be about 580, and the high school would be about 700. We've got a smaller class leaving and a larger one coming. About 700 sounds right.
Thank you.
Kim?
Dr. Brunel, can you tell us what your bottom line was again, the number?
Sure. It's $23,488,154, I believe.
Okay. Because that's different than,
Yeah, I was going to ask the same question.
Okay. So I believe probably the budget that you would have received is the one prior to this. What is the value?
It's $23,672,271, or a 3.01% increase. So I think you have taken some votes by the school committee to bring that number down.
We have reduced it from there, and so now it's at $23,488,154.
Which makes my number incorrect in terms of the difference, approximately 150,000.
Correct.
152,000, so
Right.
my apologies on missing that. I've got old numbers here.
If I may, Dr. Brunel, do you know what areas were cut from the original to where you are now? Can we get a copy of the revised?
Sure, absolutely. We can send a copy of the revised. What we did is, as a leadership team, we looked through a number of reduction scenarios and brought it to the school committee. For example, one item that you would have in the budget before you is a tech media specialist to be shared between the primary schools. That was eliminated from this. We reduced what was originally a full-time elementary school psychologist to half-time. So there were a series of reductions that were made, and I'm sorry that you didn't receive that. We will make sure you get a copy.
Okay. Works for me. Yeah, Kim, go ahead, please.
I've got a whole bunch.
Sure, no, that's fine.
Okay, Dr. Brunel, can you tell me how many additional positions? I mean, I heard you go through the list, but not
Yes.
having, how many does it count up to be? And do you have a dollar amount for that? Just the added positions?
Sure.
If they wash out because I heard you say you eliminated some, then that wouldn't be in there, I would assume.
Right.
So the net, right? The net
Right.
increase? Yeah.
For positions.
So we're adding 9 positions, but we are eliminating 4 positions. So it's a net gain of 5 positions that we are adding. And some of those are part-time positions. I did not include in that count the stipend for the assistants,
that's
for the
fine.
girls. Yeah, so those are really stipendary pieces. So I just want to confirm that I'm accurate on that. So 1. Yeah, so 9 minus the 4, so 5 total.
And do you know the dollar amount?
I can add it quickly. About 300,000, but that does not take into consideration, so I'd need to remove 3 IAs, so about $160,000, I would say.
The governor's budget, does that have increases in Chapter 70 money that have not been factored into our revenue projections for schools?
Right now, the net gain of Chapter 70, which I believe was overall increase in the state budget was about 2.4%. Our increase was about 0.5%. So that would be our additional revenue under the governor's numbers strictly for Chapter 70. Overall, Chapter 70, including unrestricted local aid and the change in cherry sheet assessments and charges, would yield us an additional $135,000, which has not been built into the budget, only because it's too premature and
Right, but how much of that, Eddie, is Chapter 70 specific schools, do you know?
I want to say it was about 40 some odd thousand.
It was, just about 40,000.
Yeah.
Just for a correction, I just did a quick add here. The net is just over 200,000, about 210,000 in increases for salary. One item, as we know, the budget process will continue. And whether or not it gets any traction at the State House, I don't know. There is a strong movement among superintendents and really reaching out to our representatives. The governor had put forth a $20 per student increase, and that's what we received in terms of Chapter 70 only. If we were to get the $50 per student increase, that would add about another $70,000 or so in terms of Chapter 70. Typically, there's much movement, and I don't know if it will be the same this year in terms of Chapter 70 when it goes into the House and Senate. But again, that's a complete conjecture at this point.
I think that's about all I've got right now. The reason I was asking about increased staff is because on the general government side, the manager's recommendations are for no increases, despite the fact that several departments, police, fire,
Sure.
Public Works, all asked for additional staff, so, and justified it very well for probably the 3rd or 4th year in a row.
Right. Understood. I would say within this 2.21% increase, it's always about, shifting priorities for us, and as they made the cases, our goal is always to try to provide service that will directly impact students. And what we're finding is, and I think this is fair to say that it's more across society in terms of children coming to school with more challenges in terms of behavioral and emotional. So we're really trying to be sure, and that's why you see the increase in the special education, the guidance, the school psychologist to do that, so, but I understand.
I have actually one more question.
Sure.
You're eliminating 2 school buildings
Correct.
in this budget document while adding 1, so the net is the decrease of 1 school building.
Right.
Does this budget factor in the physical plant savings of eliminating those buildings, electricity, all that other?
It does. We anticipated, and unfortunately, Mr. Fahey was part of the team back when Auburn High first came on. So we've been very careful in making projections. We'll be going, for example, from the current middle school, which is about 51,000, to the new middle school, which is just over 100,000. So there will be increased costs. So it's actually been helped to balance out where we won't be needing to heat or provide electricity for JB or Mary D. So it really has balanced itself. We also did, I should note here, too, with the merger, we're actually eliminating 1 third-grade position, but that's being done through a retirement as well. So that actually reduces this impact even further. So it is more down around that 160 number.
So this budget does factor in the projected savings for the elimination of
It does.
that building. And what was that savings?
Between the 2 buildings,
Ballpark?
I think it was about $62,000. 62.2 is what comes to mind between electricity and gas and oil. With the increased cost, though, to
Right.
manage the new building, so it really balanced itself. In fact, I think we may be a little bit ahead, a little behind, I guess we could say. I think the costs are a little bit more at the new middle school.
Even factoring in the elimination of 2 buildings for,
Yeah, I would say, yeah, because we're doubling the size of the current middle school. Those are the numbers that come to mind as the 62.2.
okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Ed?
Dr. Brunel, do you have any general numbers on the 2016 in terms of retirements, if we're going to see any changes in the for example, the degree step from a higher to a lower type inexperienced teacher?
We actually, per the different contracts that we have, and the teachers being the largest one, they have an obligation to let us know by October 1st of the year prior to the budget, so that we'd be presenting. So they would have needed to let us know by October 1st. So all of those are built into this, any potential savings, we build in at a lower cost for those individuals. We won't be doing the hiring for them. Probably we'll start that process in the next couple of weeks. So there may be some savings, but sometimes we hire someone at a little bit more and somebody else at less, so it generally balances out. But those have all been factored in.
Okay, thank you.
All set, Ed?
Yeah.
Yeah?
First question I have is about busing. Where are we in our contract?
We've
And-
actually, I didn't mean to cut you off, Ann.
Okay.
We have just gone out to bid, and we have secured a contract that will start July 1, and that has been figured into this budget as well.
Okay, and, of course, we've seen some decreases in gas prices and things this year. Is there anything in our contract that lets us take advantage of those decreased gas prices?
So when they bid those values, there is a fuel escalation charge in there, or a possibility, but they bid based on, and because we've recently done it, it would have taken into account the current gas prices that we're enjoying right now.
All right, so there isn't, so for instance, in our current contract, as the prices have decreased,
Sorry.
that's okay. Have there been anything in there that lets us, does the bus company charge us less?
They do not.
Okay.
Based on the current, the contract we're currently in, it does not.
Okay, all right, and my other question is about, teacher's contract. My understanding is that up on June 30th?
It is. We're currently in negotiations on that, and we've set aside a sum of money to allow us to negotiate in good faith.
So how is that being handled? I mean, I see that there are raises on the staff lines, the teaching lines items. Is that just, how are those calculated?
So what we do, as we create the budget, we use the current salary schedule, and if an individual would be moving up a step, so was below step 14 at the highest levels, we budgeted for that step, and then what we've done is set aside a sum of money to negotiate whether a COLA would be awarded.
Okay, so where is that in the budget, the COLA, the money? for
Other contractual obligations within the
Okay.
central office budget.
All right,
That, as well as the anticipated amount for the bus contract, because that was unknown at the time as well, when we went out to bid.
okay. And I know oil prices have been less than, speaking about fuel and costs, the oil prices have been less than perhaps anticipated. Has the school seen any savings this year in oil costs?
Yeah, Joe. We actually get bid prices each year,
Yeah.
and we build our budget based off of that. So the per gallon price for next year is,
$2, and the bid per gallon price for next year has actually dropped down to approximately 82 cents per gallon. And so what we did was we did a reassessment on the actual proposal for the bid, for the budget for next fiscal year, taking that into account.
Okay, so that makes sense. And do we participate in a consortium when we do our bidding for
we
that?
do, we're through the French River Education, we
Yep.
participate through that. And in fact, that was one of the cuts along the way. When we first started this budgeting process, we didn't know what the oil prices would be for next year, the natural gas. Once we learned that, we then made a reduction in the budget.
Okay. And how have the, I know the special ed costs are a big, huge portion of the budget, and sort of something that can really fluctuate depending on who moves into the district or how needs change. How has that, I see that I think the total line item is less than last year. Can you address that, please?
Sure. So we have always built our budget based on students that we know currently. We actually have students, and as they age out to 22 years of age, we then no longer budget for them, and we had one of those instances earlier this year. And fortunately, we do have that $100,000 outside article that hopefully would address an issue if a child was to move in unanticipated, but we budget for the students that we know we have in the district currently.
Okay, how many students are there in out-of-district placements right now?
I
Approximately.
would say we have between 12 and 14.
Okay, and they're all being, and then we have to pay, of course, transportation too,
We
right?
pay transportation for them as well, and if the education plan requires any summer education, we have to continue to provide for that. We do have some students who are in residential placements,
Yeah.
so that they live there full-time.
Okay, and my other, just a couple more
Sure.
questions. I missed the number when you said it. What is the amount of our total offsets between Title I and Galaxy and school choice?
$1,996,743.
Okay, and our total school choice, you mentioned 31 middle school students and our 15 middle school students and 31 at the high school?
Correct, and we receive approximately $5,000, and we've used all of that value, plus any carry forward that we anticipate. I think we've used about $315,000 as offsets to the budget.
Okay, and are we, is the district open currently for school choice? Have we maxed out at the number?
The school committee has recently added slots, 10 at the high school and 5 at the middle school. The school choice lottery closes on March 31st, so we'll be drawing those names next week.
Okay.
We have many, many children who are interested in coming to Auburn.
So you draw names for the newcomers?
We do,
Yeah.
through a lottery. It has to be a random lottery, per the law.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Mallory, go ahead.
Dr. Burnell, just one question. I think that the media specialist positions that you'd like to add are very valuable to the town, and so that's great. But do you anticipate any significant upgrades that you'll need, either with software or hardware, or is this more like a service-based position that will work with, the current technology that you have in the system?
We've entered into a lease, and we have the one-to-one iPad initiative currently in grades 8 and 9. Through the building project, we're going to be able to expand that to grades 6 through 12 next year. So iPad carts that we've been currently using at those schools, we're going to put down at Swanson Road Intermediate School. So we believe that we'll be in good shape with the iPad carts there. So this position really is to be sure that teachers have the support they need and that they're integrating and implementing it in the classroom.
Okay. So aside from the iPad carts, what other focus will the media specialists have in the classroom?
So there'll be the technology piece, but also the media piece. We've not had, but for this year, anyone in serving in like a library capacity. We were able to add that position this year at the current middle school. So this will bring down those services. So it really will be a media and technology integration for both of those pieces. We currently use, with great appreciation, parents at our primary schools and currently at our intermediate schools to assist students in taking out books, and that's been a long-standing practice.
Thank you.
Welcome.
All set?
All set.
Great. Just couple of comments and questions, Doctor. Regarding the school buildings with the taking two offline and adding the new one, square footage for the Auburn Public Schools, and is that gone up or has it gone down?
It will go up.
That's what I thought.
The new middle school is 100,395 square feet, I believe, and between JV and PAC, it's slightly less than that value.
28,000 to 30,000.
Yeah, so 58,000, so we're actually going up about 43,000 square feet in
Is
total.
that counting the stairwell at JB, or I know that's about 100,000 itself. It's a lot of steps there, and thank you on that. A lot of detail on the budget, Howie, nice job on this. A couple of, I think, comments and maybe a question on this. If I'm reading correctly, the actual budget at 10 Swanson Road is going to go down slightly from fiscal 2015. It looks like the 2015 budget, and this is where I could be misunderstanding things, was $3.928 million. It's going down slightly to $3.905 million.
Correct, so that's where we've eliminated a grade 3 position, so that's likely the difference that you see there. That's the
Okay.
merger of JV and PAC.
And that's total. And further to that, maybe a question to Mr. Fahey. We're moving some new equipment into 10 Swanson Road, correct? Some kitchen and some other equipment. Are those factored in to that, or maybe some savings from that?
That's actually coming out of CIP money.
Okay. That's, there's some operational costs there. Okay, that's fine. And further, this is just a comment. We're doubling the size of what our 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, they're building. And that budget is actually going up by 370,000, 3.9 million to 4.3 million.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm trying to underline here, hey, look, we're adding a lot of space for some older kids, that kind of thing. We are adding some additional square footage, but we're kind of holding the line on the 10 Swanson Road School in terms of really where the costs are going to be on that, correct?
Absolutely, in between the CIP money that we've strategically been saving, we're putting just about $2 million into that building to bring it up to grade a bit, as well as the MSBA accelerated repair. There'll be an additional $3 million. Approximately $2 million of that will be going into the middle school. Only 45% of it the town will be responsible for paying for. Through CIP money, no new borrowings.
Okay, no, that's fine. And my last question on the operating budget, and I will open it up if this adds to any questions going on with it. So we're still, quote-unquote, out of balance between the school department / school committee and the town manager by about 150,000 or so at this point. And you said that the process will be over the next few weeks, several weeks, in terms of whittling that down depending on what target we need to hit. Correct?
I mean, we are hopeful that we'll get some positive numbers coming out of the State House that may indicate increases in Chapter 70, perhaps.
Okay. Regarding the offsets, you mentioned a number just below 2 million, and that number sounds familiar with past years. Is that number somewhat stable on
It would be
that?
consistent, yes. I mean, there's really minimal fluctuation generally in those large grants. And the money that we would be offsetting with school choice, with the bus fee, those would all be fairly consistent numbers.
My last question on the operating budget, excuse me. We're actually dropping one school which means that we have X number of principals for X number of schools at this point. In their staff, what happens with the drop of one school? How does that work out?
So with the combination of the JB and PAC at Swanson Road Intermediate, that school will require a principal and an assistant principal, so we actually don't see a reduction in the number of administrators.
Okay, that question had come to me, and I wasn't sure, and I didn't even want to try to answer that. I know that can get a little tricky, very tricky. If there aren't any other questions on the operating budget, Kim, anything? Ian? Sure.
Just perhaps a question for Ed. With the new positions that are being added into the school department, have we figured in those benefits in our town line items, or?
What we do annually, we take our current enrollment and we add 10. Now, we add 10 for a number of reasons. One, it's in consideration of any new personnel that may be considered as part of a request and may ultimately get approved by town meeting. But it also allows for growth in open enrollment. So every year in May, some people may decide to enroll in the plan that currently are not enrolled currently. So I don't know ultimately what the recommendation will do in terms of the requests that are being made under the school committee's request. Certainly, they would have to reconsider their priorities if no additional revenue does become available.
All right, thank you. All set, thank you.
Okay, that's fine. And one last comment before we, I think, take a vote on the operating budget at this point in time. I had a chance to discuss with Mr. Fahey. I know there's been some damage to at least one of the fences outside of the high school. Just a comment regarding, obviously, a very tough winter on the school facilities themselves. That's the one thing I've noticed. Has there been any other damage going on, that kind of thing, and how are they being addressed in terms of, just from all the snow and that wear and tear?
I'll let Mr. Fahey.
Excuse me.
Good evening. To answer your question, we're very fortunate this past year. I mean, you see the damage that you see at the high school, the fence, and it was actually, it was the result of the emergency relief work that we had done from the town. I believe it was from FEMA. So it wasn't work that was done by the DPW. I'm sure everyone's in total agreement. They did a phenomenal job this year. I mean, you had record snowfall, but yet we had such small amounts of no school, you know. So they did an outstanding job. So what we've done is we actually posted on that fence that spelled out that this was not the result of the Auburn DPW, it was the result of FEMA. So that is currently being repaired, and unfortunately, it doesn't meet the threshold for an insurance claim. So that will be handled through our parking lot account.
Okay.
Not the operating budget, the parking lot account. So again, I can't speak enough for the work that DPW has done.
Great, thanks, Joe. And no other schools suffered any significant ice, water damage? Knock on wood, I know the season's not over.
No, we've been very fortunate.
Good.
We really have.
That's great.
So, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Just for the record, the snow season is over, Mr. Hussey.
I like the way you think, Doctor. I like the way you think.
Please.
Let's hope that works out. All right, at this point, I'll put out there the town manager budget. We certainly have the ability to reconsider any budget at any time before town meeting. Ed, question?
Can I ask Dr. Brunel one question? Dr. Brunel, I think we had this discussion early on, not knowing the outcome of what town meeting would yield. But with the passage of Article 2, does that offer the school committee an opportunity to revisit this budget as a result of the additional $140,000 being appropriated?
We actually use that as an offset in this budget, hopeful that they would. So that $144,519.81 has been applied. That was another piece that got us to the 2.2.
And I asked that only because the budget
Right.
we were looking at was higher than the revised budget,
Right,
so.
but that does take that into consideration.
Nice try, Ed. Very good, very good. And better for you, Dr. Brunel. We've got a town manager recommended budget of $23,336,872, which is a $356,200 increase over the fiscal 15 appropriation. That's 1.5%. And I know Kim has a question or a comment.
Ed, what's our current deficit surplus?
We provided a new number as a result of the assessment that came in from Baypath, and we're using the refund check we received from Baypath. We're going to set that up as a reserve and offset against the capital assessment for next year. So the net increase from what we had projected was roughly 70-some-odd thousand, less $37,000 of refund that we're going to apply. So our current deficit going into tonight is about $35,000. So we don't have a balanced budget. We have to address a $35,000 deficit. Now, we know that we're not using any of the governor's additional monies that we're expected to receive based upon the budget that he has presented. And quite honestly, we're not going to rely on any of that until the budget goes a little further on down the road and the House and the Senate have an opportunity, or we have an opportunity to review what numbers they release. If that additional revenue does not materialize, we have to be prepared to address that $35,000 deficit through cuts in the operational side of the budget.
Okay, Kim?
Thank you.
All right, so we've got a $23,336,872 dollar recommendation by town manager. Do we have a,
Motion to recommend?
Second.
any other discussion or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. Dr. Brunel, thanks on the operating budget,
Sure,
and just
thank you.
Thank you.
hopefully a few minutes just on the CIP. Can you give us a quick overview of, I guess it would be, I think 2020 is the latest, greatest, newest year?
So in the 2020 budget, if I may, Mr. Chair, just to share a brief update, we reviewed through our CIP as we regularly do, and I know that there's been great patience on everyone's part in terms of CIP monies appropriated to the school. It really was intentional, us saving them, and fortunately, it's going to work out with the MSBA accelerated repair. We anticipate that come September 1st, that the $2,071,000 or in that vicinity will be spent right up through the 2015 CIP. So we are using that very purposefully. Mr. Fahey, do you mind coming up? Mr. Barber, just regarding the 2020. So what we're looking for in 2020 is window replacement, the cafeteria floor replacement at Bryn Mawr School. At Packagug, we're looking for $30,000 for walkway and vestibule, basically addressing some ADA concerns. At Swanson Road Intermediate School, some climate control in the auditorium, as well as additional EMS work. Some of that is going on currently, but not for the auditorium. The field turf replacement at the football field, this has been something that's been discussed for some time, that we are going to need to start to build in monies for the replacement of those synthetic turf fields. They're well-maintained, but they're used regularly, which is a good thing. At central office, HVAC and EMS work, and then district-wide, the copier leases and some cooking equipment to be updated, as well as our ongoing initiatives for iPad and technology upgrades.
I'm not going to ask you to repeat that, but I know Ken heard every word that was said, so, you know, that's fine. I'll open it up to any questions, comments on this. I know at least for the turf field anyways, that's probably 3 or 4 years past its normal replacement, just from my understanding on,
Yes, so don't forget, it was built in 2006. and
right, 10-year life, right, Joe?
10 to 12-year life expectancy.
Okay.
Told now.
I guess my comment to that is the 120, that's a start of a program on that, right? 600,000?
Yes, that's the value of today,
Okay.
of what it would cost.
And further to that, I don't even know why I get into the minutia on this. Is that going to address the couple of the problems involved with the baseball field?
This is strictly the football field.
Strictly the football field, so we're not, now, I know the use on the baseball field is obviously a little different
Yes, that's actually going to be addressed next year.
next year, okay. Once again, this is, I guess, part of the public service of what we're doing here, Joe, so make sure everyone knows that,
What
you
we're
know.
going to be doing is we're going to be replacing the infield dirt. Again, I got to give kudos to our DPW and our Parks Department. I mean, we maintain a threshold of 6 inches from the base path. What happens is it migrates into the turf and becomes hard. It becomes hard, then now you're dealing with too dense of an area, pretty much like playing on tar. And you got to deal with, I think they call it the, slipping my mind, some compression test that we know that will fail. So we've reached out to Field Turf. They recommend replacing the dirt with artificial grass, basically brown carpet. So that's what we have in our capital to replace.
Okay,
Once that's done, the dirt will go away. Pretty much you can play it year-round.
in the, what I'll call the field hockey field, that is not being addressed, at least at this point in time, starting in 2020?
Correct.
Okay. Is that,
As of right now, that's the least field that actually has the least amount of wear on it at this
Okay.
point. So the evaluation that we had done this past year addressed the football field, then we go to the baseball, then we'll hit the all-purpose field.
okay. That's fine, and obviously some of these, I'll say costs are also subject to some of maybe the reuse of Mary D. Stone. I know there's been some discussion regarding the central office, et cetera, that's all subject to change. Okay. Any other questions? We're not going to vote on the CIP in total tonight anyways, but just an opportunity to add some comments, and any additional comments you might have. I won't ask about wish list stuff, because basically you got about, what, 90 million in kind of new buildings in the last 10 years. We can wait for wish list stuff?
We're very appreciative of the support.
All right. Kim?
I just have a question about the revised number for FY16 under the high school. It's 340, taking from the middle school and putting into the high school. What? It looks like you moved 300,000 from middle to high school. Do you see where I'm?
What's 340?
Yeah.
The 340 was always identified for the high school, and originally it was identified for HVAC upgrade for the second and third floor. What we're very fortunate, a couple of years ago, from the quick turnaround as far as the payment that we received, I'm not sure the exact number, I think it was $436,000 that was given back to the town. What we're able to do is utilize that money along with $200,000 of the CIP to actually make this project come into fruition. So that way, what we're going to do is reappropriate that money, and that's what we're using to upgrade the baseball field.
So now, I'm confused. The 340,000 that's listed under the high school, you don't need for,
We do need that. That 340,000 was originally for the HVAC, and because that's being done, as Mr. Fahey had indicated, it's now going to be for carpet replacement, but primarily for the field turf implementation.
Yeah, good question. And regarding the reduction in the middle school from the 375 to the 75? From the original?
So originally, now that we'll be going for FY16, we'll have a brand-new middle school. The number that I'm showing here was at 75,000, and it's showing no change. I don't know if we're looking at the same copy
2016.
for 2016.
Yeah, I'm looking at a fiscal 16 original of 375, and revised of 75.
I don't have a document that says that.
Yeah, well, we'd have to go back to last year's.
Not that important.
Yeah.
That's fine. Okay,
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
old number anyways. Okay, that's fine. Any other questions?
No.
Great. Thanks for coming up.
Okay,
Definitely
thank you very
appreciate it. If
Thank
there's any
you.
changes, obviously, we'll be communicating.
Great.
And appreciate
Thank you
your
for
time.
support.
Have a great night.
You as well, thanks. Thank you, Ed, for this.
Yeah. Okay, our next budget is the DPW. Bill Coyle and part of his leadership team is here. Good to see you guys. Wayne and Jeff. Jeff, looking tan there. Hopefully that was a good vacation. Bill, good to see you.
Good evening.
To see you when it's not snowing, by the way.
Yeah, it's only raining tonight, so we're good. If you want, I can give you a quick overview of the budget and maybe review maybe some of the changes versus things that are level funded.
Yep.
Okay.
That'd be great. Whatever's easier for you, Bill.
I'll do that, and then happy to answer any questions that you might have. What I would say overall, in general, regarding the budget, I went through and calculated each department individually where what the overall increase percentage-wise was. And if you were to subtract out the Upper Blackstone Water Pollution Abatement District, the assessment of 78, just shy of 78,000, our overall DPW budget increased just about 1% overall. So we tried to go through and level fund as much as we could. We do have contractual increases that obviously we had to meet as well. Starting at engineering, and again, I'll just highlight anything that to me jumps out as a change, and then again, you're happy to answer any questions. So engineering then really wasn't too much of a change other than a contractual increase, the 2% increases for the positions. In stormwater, you'll see an increase in the wages full-time from the FY appropriation from 45,000 to 48,000. And that's about a 5.8% increase. And the reason for that is the position was vacant. The person who had the position previously had resigned, and the new person who filled this position came from a different division who had been there for more years. So they would start out at a higher step than the entry-level person that was there previously. So that's why the stormwater wages was up 5.8% for that one individual. Decrease in sediment disposal from 15,000 to 5,000. Again, trying to minimize the amount of sand. Though I will say this year we probably used a little more sand than we did last year. Towards the end of the season, trying to minimize costs because we had already maxed out on our bid amount for the salt. We have to project what our anticipated usage is for our contract, and we anticipate, I believe it's 2,500 tons, minimum purchase of 2,000, maximum of 3,000. So when you exceed that 3,000 amount, you're kind of at their mercy in terms of the cost. So we didn't want to purchase any more beyond that, so we ended up using a little more sand. So but the overall goal is to minimize the amount of sand, so we decreased the sediment disposal cost because it's essentially the street sweepings. As we pick it up, we have to legally dispose of it in the sand. De-weeding decreased from 35 to 32,000. We did find the last year that the last couple of years the bids have come in lower, so we felt comfortable decreasing that amount. The other numbers are fairly level funded. Wages under the highway department, we did request, and you can see it in the roster, we requested 2 additional positions in the highway department, not knowing what the fiscal situation was going to be for the town. We essentially lost 2 employees through facilities. Initially, when we had created facilities and fleet maintenance, we didn't anticipate 2 employees from highway being utilized 100% of the time, and I can tell you that, as everyone can see, they're in from the plan that the DPW and the town management team put together for, I think it was, we looked out 3-5 years, and certainly that's not going to change anytime soon. So the highway department is basically short by 2 people now, which I believe gives us 8, I'd have to count them, but 8 people dedicated for highway. In years past, I know there were 15 to 20, so we have minimal staffing right now in the highway department, so we did request 2 additional. My understanding is that given the fiscal situation and some of the uncertainties, that request couldn't be fulfilled, but, which is understandable. The licensing account, if you jump down, we had an increase in that. That's based on recent changes through the state requiring the CDL, the commercial driver's license holders, and the hoisting licenses to operate backhoes and whatnot. They now require CEUs, which we have to pay to have classes now for the employees. So that's an increase under the licensing requirement, which is a contractual obligation with the unions. Protective clothing, we find that we typically are under protective clothing in terms of cost, so we try to get that closer to the 3-year average, and so that's a $1,000 increase. DEP fines, again, I'm trying to highlight the ones that aren't level funded. DEP fines, DEP actually, this is a fine from when there was a fuel spill at the highway department years ago, so it's a carryover from years past, and there's an increase in that fine recently from $800 to $980. Jumping down to tree removal, second to the last on the bottom of the highways, or this section, or this page, at least on my page, we went from 10,000 to 12,000. I can tell you there's always a need for removing trees, and we get calls all the time for dead trees, and we go out there and they'll be rotted out and hollowed out, and we can't leave them. They are a hazard. So there's definitely a need for an increase, and even more than the 12,000, I would say, but it's a number that we felt, at least for now, would help the situation.
Hey, Bill, that amount, current budget question, only because there's so much tree removal work being done up on Packagug Hill.
Yeah.
Is that covered or addressed under this account?
That's actually being performed by National Grid. They came in earlier this winter to meet with the tree warden to review what trees they felt were a hazard to their power lines. And they have a plan for tree removal, and they're going throughout town removing trees within the right-of-way that pose up to them a significant or a potential hazard.
So that cost is on them. I've had a lot of people asking, where are we getting the money to do this? And
Yeah, that's
Now we
borne
know.
by National Grid.
excellent, thank you. Sorry to interrupt, Bill.
Oh, no problem. So moving along, let me see, make sure I lose my place here. I believe I'm at sand and gravel. Make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah.
Okay, this is under the snow and ice budget. So you'll see part-time wages, overtime, equipment rental. Those were level funded. Obviously, a year like we had this winter, not possible to stay level funded. But we do find, again, a decrease in the sand costs and increase in salt costs. And that cost actually increased by about 20% in terms of the bid price this past year because of supply and demand. Storm meals, we find typically, again, looking at the 3-year average, contractually, we have to feed the employees if they're there during a storm. So, the 3-year average was $1,200, and we've budgeted a little over $1,200. We budgeted $1,400. I think this year was more too. Skilled laborer differential under the facility management account. The FY15 appropriation was $8,000. we've increased to $10,359. That's in anticipation of the need for potentially using additional staff. If we're doing a project like a roofing project that requires more than 2 people, then we may provide 1 or 2 highway or sewer or parks or cemetery employees to work within facilities to help carry the shingles up to the roof and different things, and work with facilities, so they would be paid. There's a differential that they get. I think it's 75 cents an hour difference. So that's factored in. Further along, in the Parks Department, under wages, we've increased in the labor/parks from $138,500 to $148,500. That increase is a contractual obligation that when we negotiated the contract with both the parks and cemetery departments, there was, I believe it's a 2% increase in wages, but for those 2 departments, their employees were being paid less than the highway employees. Where highway employees can be paid as they're heavy equipment operators, and they get step raises, the employees in the parks and cemetery departments were not getting paid the same step raises. So when we renegotiated the contract, we increased their steps so that they had the ability to be paid as much as the highway workers would be paid. So this was something we negotiated with the unions to try to basically keep the pay scale a little more level or even between the departments. Okay, so that's why that's increased that amount. Under the electricity and water accounts, what we're finding is the electricity cost, as everybody is saying, has increased significantly. But the fortunate thing is we've been able to decrease the water costs, mainly because in many of these areas the vegetation has established itself, so we've been able to decrease the amount of water that we need to use and reserve it more for times when there's a drought situation, essentially, a very dry time of year. So we've been able to cut back on the amount of water being used in the Veteran Memorial Parks. So all the parks, that were constructed along the Route 12 corridor, again, the need for the amount of water usage has decreased. You can look at FY13, we're at $10,000 for water, and last year we were at $3,900, and then this year we're budgeting $2,400. And again, electricity has gone up. Similarly, the Pappas facility, same thing. We've kind of looked at what last year's bills were, and the water department, or the water bill for Pappas was running around $4,500, electricity around $5,500. So where we had budgeted $8,000 previously for water and $2,000. So the total is still the same, but we've split it up differently to meet the needs of what the actual invoices are. Under the recreation budget, you'll see a change in the recreation director's, not her salary, but how the salary is being funded. A larger percentage is now being funded through the revolving account, and I think additional items were added that were previously in the town manager's account for Memorial Day and 4th of July line items as well. So the overall budget looks like it increased about 2,800 plus or minus. In the cemetery division, under the wages, the superintendent was a 2% increase. The union employees, again, for the same reason as the Parks Department, because it's one department, Parks and Cemetery Department and Recreation, where they're union employees. Again, that was a contractual obligation that we negotiated with them. And I think the remaining on the cemetery were level funded. And the sewer department, which I'll ask Jeff to add to this, but a couple of quick points that I would mention, because I was looking at the superintendent's salary, shows a 4% increase, and I believe that's because if you look at FY14 and 15, for some reason the increase from the previous year had not been budgeted, So I'm sure we must have come in last year with a transfer. So you'll see 14 and 15 were level funded, and it should have been 2% increase. So that's why you see it, now it's a 4% increase because we missed one of the years. And again, I'm sure we were here last year doing a transfer because of that. Beyond
Was the
that,
superintendent taking care of Ed? I hope.
Well, like the other departments, all the bylaw employees, remember, the consideration was set aside in the reserve account, so during the year, a transfer would have been made consistent with those of the bylaw employees. So it only reflects the appropriation that was approved by town meeting.
Town meeting, okay.
and if Jeff has anything specific that he wants to add to the sewer department budget, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer any questions. The biggest increase was the Upper Blackstone assessment. It looks like it was a 7% increase. So, yeah, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have regarding the budget.
Great, thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
And before we start on the questions, the total DPW budget town manager requests, if I'm reading this correctly, is $4,523,614, a $124,890 increase over prior year. That's including the Upper Blackstone assessment or charges. I'll open that up to questions. Mallory, Kim, anything? Kim?
The highway superintendent position in the highway, is that the same as the sewer superintendent position?
No, highway superintendent is Kenny Fairbanks.
Okay, gotcha.
You forgot Kenny? Oh,
Yeah. If he was here tonight, you would
yeah,
remember.
he was supposed to be here.
We'll blame
What?
Kenny for that.
Let me guess, he couldn't find a tie, right?
Okay, next question relates to facilities and, fleet maintenance. I think I heard you say, Bill, that, you've basically lost 2 employees from the highway side for facility.
Correct.
So their salaries are still being carried in the highway side, but they're working full-time in facility?
Other than during the winter months with snow and ice, then they're still working within the highway department. But during the normal roadway maintenance, yeah, we very limited. I can tell you the one time in the roadway when we had to repair the bridge deck on Oxford Street North, we had the facilities department do that work. But a very large percentage of their time is strictly within facilities.
Does it make sense to put those employees in facilities so you're getting so you're not looking like your highway has more personnel than it actually has? And that your facilities are,
Yeah, I mean, it's
and the same goes for fleet maintenance. Is your fleet maintenance person a full-time fleet maintenance?
well, with the facilities, answering that one first, I would just have to make sure, I don't think it would affect the union issue, because those 2 highway employees are still on the call list whenever there's, if there's flooding or, a pothole and they have to come in, so they're still rotated through the highway department, but we could reflect a larger percentage of their salary within the facility. I mean, it's nothing that we've ever really discussed, but certainly it's been evident over the past couple of years that that's what's happened. It could be reflected more within the facility division, so it better represents what the accounting is for those positions.
Well, my reasoning is the facilities department covers all town departments, not just Public Works.
Correct.
The highway positions are strictly Public Works employees providing a Public Works highway function. I think that you've clearly demonstrated that 8 employees is not enough people for, I don't know how you guys do what you do. after the winter we had.
There's certainly a lot more we could do with more employees. I mean, there's a lot of permanent patching of roadways that needs to be done. We've started crack sealing last year. That's something that's very important, and we're going to continue doing. But unfortunately, we'll have 4 of the DPW staff out sweeping roadways soon, so that's going to be half of our staff. The others will be going out repairing lawn damage, berm damage, and different things. So when they're done sweeping, probably towards, the end of June, we'll start crack sealing. But we'll have very limited time now. We'll have a lot of catch basins that are collapsed that need to be rebuilt and repaired. You drive around town, and maybe roads that are in decent shape, but you have an area that, it's settling, that needs a permanent patch, not just throw asphalt in it, because that's not going to last. So there's a lot more we could be doing with more staff, certainly. And I do agree, we could represent that differently to reflect that it's actually an increase in the overall facilities budget and shows the decrease in the highway budget.
Because that's what's happening, is you're losing those people to a function that was not a highway function.
Right. In the fleet division, some of the highway personnel will work within the fleet division during the winter when we can't go out and do highway work, or we're not plowing parking lots or roads. But also a sewer employee or employees will be over there as well. So a large percentage of that is not reflected in this as well, but it's obviously being funded by the town. But it could be modified in the future. It's something to look at. We haven't really discussed doing that, but it might represent better how the positions are actually working for the town.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time, but I know we can't at this point increase this budget, but I would really like to make a motion that the first item to be on the list to be funded when the numbers are final are those 2 public works positions, or 1 public works position at least.
Well, which does bring up the question, is there a so-called wish or priority list that we're not choosing to address at this point in time, Ed? And where this might stand on that list?
Well, certainly it was hard to put together a priority list because we didn't have any state numbers at the time we presented the budget. So knowing what at least one set of numbers reflects, we know how much flexibility there is based upon the bottom line that we have before us tonight. That being said, there may be upwards of $100,000 available, not knowing what the Finance Committee's recommendations would be. Based upon the manager's recommendation, we decided to at least hold off on making those recommendations until at least another set of numbers comes out, that being the House numbers, just to do a basis of comparison. But certainly, as you can see, the need is there in every department. It's reflected through their request. We weren't in a position to put together that priority list until we know.
I do understand that, and it seems like every year we sit and we talk to the police chief, and he says he needs, 2 more people, and I'm sure the fire chief is going to come in and say he needs a couple more people. Public Works comes in and says what they need. I would like this committee to make take a stand on the things that we would like to fund if money is freed up by additional, revenues from the state. And my motion would be that this would be the number 1 priority.
Yeah, that's fine. Ironically, Ed and I had a quick conversation during special town meeting last night. I was looking at the Upper Blackstone budget or assessment, and see the normal increase in there. And what I was trying to convey to Ed, without being disrespectful to whoever was speaking, was that, this is really clouding the DPW budget, because it's showing an increase in that, but not really in terms of what truly the department is doing. So it kind of falls along the same line here. We've got facilities management people being captured under DPW when the intent of what they're doing is actually not DPW stuff. So I fully agree with you on that. I'd like to get a comment from Ed on that, and then I think I would love to entertain that motion.
Yeah, and you know, we talked about this, that one line item does inflate the increase in their budget. If you just remove the Upper Blackstone alone, their increase from current year to FY16 is only 1.06. It's a small increase, given the need that Bill clearly has identified. And the dividends that is paid off as a result of facility management and fleet is, the numbers are, they're unbelievable. I mean, I think since facilities had started, they've identified in excess of $600,000 worth of savings.
So, I mean, basically, you've just made the argument for them getting those positions. If they've saved that,
Yep. And as a result of that, it's taken away from the services and work required to maintain our roadways on an annual basis. So there is a compelling argument there. Clearly, we recognize that. It is a priority, and it's something we'd like to address.
And I did try to put the Upper Blackstone budget under Ed, under the CFO, and he said no way. So we know there's something going on there, too.
Well, we have to keep that in the sewer department only because they're enterprise, and we recoup 100% of those costs through user fees. So
Yeah, you're still-
there is a reason it's there. If you look at the financials that we provide to you in summary, we do separate out sewer from DPWs, and we do that for that reason, because
Would it make sense to pull facilities management out of Bill's Kingdom?
no, because under the organizational structure, it's a component of DPW, so we cannot carve that out.
no, I'm not suggesting you
Okay.
carve it out, but put those employees that are working in that under facilities.
And we can do that in the future. We have to have a discussion on how those wages are allocated, because under DPW, Bill can deploy his workforce in different areas based upon really crisis management. I mean, that's how he's operating now. They are utilized for a number of things. Their primary job function is facilities, but they're utilized out on the roads, they're used for plowing, and they're used for other things. So we're gonna have to identify on an allocation basis how much of their wage is driven by facilities and how much is clearly DPW related. And we can do that, we can segregate that. But I don't think we can do it now, I think it's something we build in.
That's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine.
And Kim, if you'd like to...
That is my
put-
motion
and
to-
that would be to...
That the first priority, when the numbers from the state are final, if there is additional revenue available in state aid on the general government side, the first priority of the Finance Committee is to fund the 2 highway positions requested by the Public Works Director.
Is that encompassing enough for everyone? Any questions or comments on that?
Give me a second.
I'm about to ask for a second. I just wanted to make sure. Do we have a okay, we have a second on that. All in favor of that? Aye. We're unanimous. So
Thank you very much.
We'll do our best on that, and if nothing else, we'll keep our CFO in a corner that he's got to talk his way out of if he's got a better priority.
And certainly, we appreciate your support in hoping that we can move forward. It would benefit the town. We're investing a lot of money into our roads, and certainly we want to do our best to keep them up and maintain them. So we do appreciate your support.
Yeah, no, we appreciate the work you've done on a tough winter. I am going to open this up to questions, Bill, if there are any others. Kim, did you have any more questions yourself?
No, other than what's our current snow deficit?
We were at about a $250,000 deficit. I can tell you, we also have a request through FEMA for a $300,000 reimbursement for 4 storm events, Jeff. The blizzard, I believe it's Juno, I believe that was about $125,000. I think FEMA or MEMA felt very confident that at a minimum, the $125,000 plus or minus, until we have actual numbers, it's the initial assessment, would have support of FEMA. But we've also submitted additional storms that MEMA felt as though would potentially qualify as a total. So with all 4 storms submitted through MEMA, and then they send them to FEMA for their review, it would be $300,000 that we would be reimbursed. So we're hopeful. We haven't heard back yet. I believe it's actually before the president currently. We're hoping within the next 30 days that we would hear. But it seemed as though at a minimum, the blizzard where we had 3 feet of snow would be reimbursed at the $125,000 level.
So you'll know what has been approved by the feds before the end of the fiscal year? You won't have the money necessarily, but you'll know, is that what you're kind of indicating, or?
Yeah, if we don't receive the money, we would be allowed to basically journalize that out, segregate that as a isolated fund balance account, with an expectation, an offsetting receivable, hopefully, that the money would be forthcoming. If it's not received, then we have the ability to raise a portion, or if there is a shortfall, that difference on the tax recap sheet for next year. It is allowed. And also, I think there is legislation that was passed under the governor's budget that would allow for a 2-year deferral on any snow and ice deficits, which is something we have never seen before. Normally, it's raised the next year. They would allow to raise that over a 2-year period to kind of soften the blow. So that's all part of what's being discussed now. But we're prepared to take whatever measures is required in order to minimize, at least on the operational side of the budget, the impact that the deficit would have, because it is pretty substantial.
Thanks.
All set, Mallory?
While we're on the topic of snow and ice, Bill, the only department I see having equipment rental is the snow and ice.
Yeah.
What equipment is that, and would it ever make sense to purchase anything that
No,
we rent?
the description of that item is probably should be modified. But over the years, it's kind of always been called equipment rental. It's actually rental it's the private plow contractors.
Okay,
We do the vast majority of the plowing operations with the town department. We typically will have 20 to 22 town employees plowing. We have our janitors out plowing, so we try to minimize the private contractors. But typically we'll have about 12 to 13 private plows out there if we have a storm event of more than 4 inches of snow. So that's what that private equipment rental is for, the private plow contractors.
and is that something you think would go down if, like Kim said, we got more positions, or depends on the storms?
It could go down. I can tell you during the blizzard, I had, I think, 20 private contractors in, just because that's the kind of storm where you need more. So it's hard to say. So if we were to get 1 or 2 additional employees, you would expect then we would have 1 or 2 less private contractors, which we would. So it would allow us to minimize the private contractors. The only other issue we would run into is basically every piece of equipment we have is out on the road. So I think this year, since we were short on equipment, if something broke down, we might have had 1 pickup truck available. So we've maximized the employees. Even one of our leaf pile attendants was plowing for us this year, and he did a great job. So we're trying to get as many employees that we can, because that hourly rate is, I think, $16 to $17 an hour. And we have the trucks available, although we have minimal. We have some of the older trucks that limp along, but they make it through the storm. But versus paying $60 an hour for a private contractor.
Okay.
But you're right, with additional staff, those would result in less private contractors needed.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Good. Ed, anything? All set. Ann?
I have a couple of questions. Have we heard what we anticipate in Chapter 90 receipts yet?
Yeah, good news on that part. It looks as though the governor has filed another bill for what they call the pothole funds this year. And I believe last year we received $92,000, so we would expect that if that bill is passed, and I'm not sure if that's been passed yet or not, but that we would receive the same amount of funds, and that has to be expended by the end of June, which we would do. So that's an additional $92,000. And he also, the Governor Baker also signed the $100 million bond bill that Deval Patrick had not signed previously. So that $100 million would equate to an additional $300,000 to the town of Auburn in Chapter 90. So this year, assuming the $200 million that he also has a bond bill, which I think I think they vote on by tomorrow, or Friday rather, that's the other $600,000. So total of Chapter 90 would be about $900,000 this year, which is a significant increase this year. And then the $92,000 in the pothole money, we would get close to $1 million this year. And
So in fiscal 15.
15/16. The pothole money would be 15, and then I believe the 900 would be 16.
Okay.
But
Well, that's a great number.
it is, and
Yeah.
we'd already started talking about what additional projects that are in need to be completed to try to take advantage of those funds and get them out the door as quickly as possible, because we should be advertising our contract within the next 2 weeks to get that out on the streets. And I think we're going to try to take into account these additional funds as well that we'll be getting.
All right, just a couple other questions. I know in the past few years, we've been trying to address snow and ice and put some extra money into that account to, but it doesn't appear we did that this year. I mean, bring those, the budget amounts up to a level that's a little more reasonable to what we usually see. Is that something we didn't do this year?
I think it was increased in previous years. We didn't this year, though.
No, 2 years ago, we increased it by roughly $50,000. I think
Okay.
last year it was increased by a whopping $600 to make it a $300,000.
Right.
Yeah, I think our goal was to try to budget eventually to $350,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Years past, that was about what the three-year average had been, although
Yeah.
some years more recently have been less. We were trying to have that as our target number of 350.
And if I may, Mr. Chairman, that is a priority because that takes some pressure and relief off the reliance on the contingency account in order to fund those annual deficits. And that's part of, quite honestly, the financial policies. We wanted to increase our contingency to provide more of a safety net for circumstances that may arise during the year.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So my other questions, I was looking at the sewer department budget, and I see the line item for contingency. Is that for a specific, is that for something specific, or just something in general? Or I know you were working on the alarm systems last year. Is that going towards that?
I think I'll let Jeff Mitchell, I'll defer to Jeff to that question. He came all the way from Florida, so.
Just flew in, man. The contingency covers the wage increases, whereas, as mentioned earlier, we're enterprise, 100% enterprise. So when wages and whatnot have changed, we don't come back for a reserve fund transfer. It's transferred out of that. Or if there are unforeseen shortfalls within the budget, we transfer it out of that. Otherwise, the only other way to obtain money is through town meeting, through our retained earnings account.
Okay, is the contract in negotiation? Is there a,
No, it's the last year, I believe, we'll be starting, I think we start again in May, don't we, for,
It ends in June of 16.
June of 16?
All right, my other question is about Upper Blackstone. It doesn't look like, well, we got an increase in our assessment, of course.
Yep.
Not surprising, but what's, they just finished one big project over there, I believe, right? Based on DEP request, but now DEP's required another project?
It's actually EPA, but
EPA, okay, no, right,
They're the
right,
same.
EPA, My letter's mixed up.
what they're doing right now is they're doing multiple pilot tests. We did receive a compliance schedule, which is a 10-year schedule, in order to comply with what the permit says right now. We're already 4.5 years into a 3-year permit, so there'll be another permit coming out shortly. What they're doing is you're going to see a slight increase above the actual needs in order to build up a little bit of a reserve account, which will, once the bigger projects come in, it's going to offset, help out, it's going to give them free cash in order to offset large increases in the assessments. So that's what we're going to see, is they're trying to keep the operational side of the plant is pretty much like our budget, you know what I mean? 1-2% increase, but we have all of the debt and interest that's jacking up the assessment and the overall budget costs. So like I said, they're trying to build up their free cash a little bit at a time, over the next maybe 3, 4, 5 years. And at that point, the pilot programs will be finished, and we'll know in what direction we'll be going as far as that goes. So I would say within 3 to 5 years, we'll know what projects will have to begin to address the permit.
Okay, thank you.
All set? Okay. Ed, any,
I just want to make one
another
other comment
comment, right?
relative to Chapter 90.
Yep.
Sharon just informed me that contract documents have been received in the last day or two relative to the pothole money. So looks like the $92,000 will be awarded to the town once the contracts have been signed.
Good. Further to Chapter 90, and actually roadway improvements, Bill, Ed and I have talked briefly, and I know he's chatted with you on this. I think it was back in 08, 09, we had a similar situation with the price of oil going through the floor after going through the roof. And at that time, we were able to take advantage, in fact, I think you held off on using some funds to take advantage of lower costs, lower contract costs, because of the reduced petroleum prices. Are we in somewhat of a similar situation relative to contract prices, or has that not gotten there yet?
I won't really know the answer to that until our bids come in. I can tell you that I believe that the West Street project, which is being funded through the school, middle school project, bid came in, I believe, just a little over $1 million, which is pretty much where they had estimated the project at. So I think in terms of the percent on the bids, I don't think we're seeing a huge decrease, but certainly there should be some savings with the decrease in cost of fuel. The downside is they also have built into the contract that if fuel costs increase, they are able to reflect that change in their contract value. So that if over a 6-month contract, the oil prices go through the roof, they have an adjustment factor that the state allows through the bidding process, so that, which works, I believe, the same way if it decreases as well. But we would expect some lower bidding. Until we go out to bid, I won't know exactly where that number is for the asphalt. We're going to have a larger contract this year, I think, which will also help us get more competitive, better prices, because we have the $900,000 that we're expecting. I believe that letter should come out April 1st for the Chapter 90. So with that $900,000, with the $92,000 the pothole money, with the money that we already have, that we were already planning on bidding, which is, I believe, around $1.6 million, and then additional funding, we're going to have a pretty large project going out to bid. It'll probably be $2.5 million or more once we come up with what the total value that we have available for the project. So having a project of that size and combining actually last year's monies with what we're about to get and going out to bid now and trying to get all that out in the streets, I think we'll get more competitive bidding for a large project as well. So that should help us do more roadways for the amount of money that we're spending. So.
Good. You're going to be a popular guy, I guess, huh? A lot of phone calls on roadway stuff. That's fine. Any other questions on the operational budget? And we'll talk about capital in a second, Bill. We've got before us town manager requests for $4,523,614 for the DPW. This represents a $124,890 increase, or 2.71% over prior year.
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. Great. Thank you very much on that. And, Bill, any just quick highlights on your 2020 CIP?
I can run through it quickly, and I have Wayne Bloomquist here as well. He can probably speak on the parks and cemetery items. So I'll touch base with the highway division first. We continued to carry the $100,000 of roadway improvement funds within the CIP. In addition, we had $80,000 for the, looks like it's the second payment of a six-wheel dump truck, one of the larger trucks. And then we have a pickup truck, also F-350, for $50,000 programmed. And we have the fourth payment for a loader, and that's the fourth year of a 5-year payment plan, which would put the CIP for highway at $270,000. In meeting with the town manager and with Ed, I know that there's a goal for the town to try to minimize or decrease the amount of the CIP and fund more of the capital through the budget. So I think that's somewhat reflected in this, where we've gone from previous years at $305,000 and decreased to $270,000, again with the town's goal of trying to minimize the borrowing of funds for large purchases as well. I'll let Jeff speak on the sewer department, and let's see if I have anything else in here to speak of. Engineering, drainage account, it's we scheduled $105,000, which was level funded from the $105,000 from 2019. Increase from the $100 from previous years, just trying to build in basically a cost of living or an inflation adjustment. And if Wayne wants to go over the parks and cemetery, he has 2 in parks, and then it's double-sided in the cemetery.
Okay, we had the leaf box and trailer for $40,000 for the CIP, and that's for picking up the leaves at all the fields. It's the leaf box that we use now is a homemade deal that we add to a dump truck. This would be a more modernized, more efficient piece of equipment that you can drive and vacuum all the fields and everything else. The one-ton dump truck with a plow, that would be a first installment for a payment on a dump truck for the Parks Department. The dump trucks that they do have will be 11, 12 years old, so they'll be due for replacement anyways. But if we break it up with installments, it helps a lot on that. Let's see. And then going to the cemetery, we have air compressor. That's going to be, we use that all winter for the jackhammering of the graves and so forth. The jackhammer, the compressor we have now is $19.99, so
Really?
it'll be real old.
Okay, we have any questions for either Bill or Wayne, or heck, even Jeff on that? Ed, I know we had talked a little bit about still trying to move some of these funds from the CIP. I know a couple of years ago, might have even been last year, we moved 25 grand of roadway improvement, I think, back to the operating side. Is that still part of a longer-term plan to try to move, generally speaking, some of these back?
Through the chair, we did have that discussion. Let me just first say that if you look at the capital plan, if you look to the right of the manager's recommendation, you're going to see how these individual items have been funded. We are currently funding in FY16 about $660,000 of capital through our tax levy as a result of the approval of the financial plans and policies and procedures that allows us to use an earmark of 1/10 of 2.5% directly into our capital plan. And as you can see, that's been over the course of the last couple of years, that's increased dramatically, and that's taken the pressure off our need to fund our capital through bond proceeds. So that's a good thing, because ultimately it's going to shrink our debt ratio down as a percentage of our operating budget. In terms of town road improvement, it's not strictly roadway construction. There are other items that are purchased through that line item that are not directly, I can't directly relate it to roadway reconstruction. So as a result of that, we would either have to carve out a portion of that, add it into the operational side of the budget, or further define that. But it changes from year to year, all depending on the need.
And I think, Ed, from FY15, because I believe the roadway improvement through the CIP, we did decrease that by $25,000 from 15 into 16, and then we've kind of level funded it through those following years. And I believe we go back to the budget, we did increase, so you've increased the line item in the budget by the $25,000 and then some towards
Right.
the improvements to the roadway system. So
Yeah, the idea is not to reduce our expense on it, it's more moving it to
Moving
the
it, right.
operating, to the budget side from the CIP side. And there's never been, I think, on this committee, any intent to truly
Right.
reduce what we're going to spend on roadway improvements.
In addition to that, there's drainage that's directly related to the roadway reconstruction as well.
Well, that's where I was going to go next on that. Is there an opportunity to maybe move some of that over to the budget also? Or just keep that in mind as we move forward? It's a tough year, given everything else we've added onto the operating budget.
Yeah, I mean, quite honestly, once we've identified, the problem is it clearly is a capital expense-driven line item, and it meets the criteria of that, and even though it's not funded through bond proceeds, it really needs to be in the capital improvement plan.
Okay.
Because that need does change from year to year, based upon a level of Chapter 90 funding and other revenue sources that really assist Bill in preparing what he needs to put out for a bid on an annual basis. So I think what we can do is, on the operational side of the budget, where it's 525, we can put a footnote in there that in addition to that, there are these other funds in the capital improvement plan for a total commitment of X towards our roadway reconstruction program.
Yeah, and I think our bigger concern is not financing these things, not
Right.
putting them out to bonds. So the fact that we've highlighted that this is being picked up through tax levy, that's all I care about. It's still dollars out of our tax pocket versus, for whatever reason, putting it out through bond. That's I think, our biggest concern.
Ultimately, our goal is to fund 100% of our CIP plan through tax levy, but it's going to take some years to get there, but we're moving in that direction, and that's a good thing.
if I could add, I think currently in our budget, the town is funding not just the $525,000, but under stormwater, We have the 180,000, so we're over $700,000 a year now as a budgeted commitment towards the infrastructure, which it's not borrowed. So I think it shows a, aggressive move for the town to try to improve the roadway infrastructure without borrowing the funds to do it.
Yep, totally agree. That's very good. Any other questions on the CIP portion for the DPW? Gentlemen, thanks for your time. We do appreciate it. We're going to vote on the CIP in total at
Thank
some
you.
point in time anyways, okay?
We have some transfers. I don't know if that's going to be discussed tonight, too.
Yeah, we're
I'll
getting
hang-
to those next.
I'll hang
so-
around for that.
So thanks for moving the meeting along. Appreciate that, Bill. All right. So that's it for the budgets tonight. I believe we voted on the DPW. Our next agenda item is transfers. All right. Our first transfer, this is under DPW Cemetery Division. So this is Wayne's land. The request is to transfer from the gas account $109.66 or 68 cents to dues and publication. Balance on account not sufficient to cover hoisting engineer license renewals. I'll open it up to questions because I know you'll go on for an hour on this.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? See, Wayne?
Didn't even have to say anything.
Our next transfer, this is under the DPW Parks Division. My requested is $128.48 from the Labor Parks to the clerical account to cover shortage in the budgeted amount for fiscal 2015. Any questions on this?
Motion to recommend?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted.
Thank you.
That's it, Wayne, huh? Oh, too darn easy.
We have to hold?
Well, he doesn't have it, but you
All right,
might.
okay.
What's that?
There's one that we have that we don't, because it has to be held, so we'll just... Okay,
All right.
so the next one you have is the 309?
Mr. Chairman, the transfer request asking for $100.77 is being put on hold.
Okay. I
So
can do
maybe
that.
next meeting.
I can do that. We'll see you next week, maybe. Our next transfer, DPW Highway Division, amount requested $309 even. This is from the wages full-time to the license department. This is, the town pays for license renewals per union contract. Any questions for our DPW director?
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted.
Thank you.
Is that all you have, Bill? Thank you. Appreciate you guys coming.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Our next transfer is under treasurer. Amount requested $1,500 from the certification of notes account. This is going to office supplies, office relocation expense, office furniture, paint and equipment. Any questions or comments?
Where's it moving to?
Actually, there were several relocations. Amanda Gage, who was connected to my office, has moved over to the Merriam Building, which freed up an office. The Veterans Agent has moved down to where Amanda was, so we could move HR to a standalone office because of confidentiality issues. People had to walk through a main office to get to HR. Very sensitive about privacy. HR will be moving to the front of the building where Larry used to occupy the office, and there'll be some reshuffling of the treasurer collector to accommodate a better work situation in there. It offers an opportunity to paint the offices now that the furniture is being moved out, so facilities is going to come in and paint the offices of HR in the treasurer's office, and some additional chairs have been requested as well for the treasurer collector.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed, so voted. Thank you. And let's see, two more transfers. Reserve account transfer, this is from the town manager. Professional services, amount requested is $11,460. Present balance is just over $2,200. This is for title insurance for South Hold Road. Any questions?
Motion to recommend.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So voted. And
Chairman, that was an unforeseen expense that we didn't account for when the budget was recommended.
you didn't know that was happening last year? Really?
Not the insurance part.
No, not the insurance part. And our final transfer, excuse me, this is under general services. Amount requested is $500 from the clerical committee account to overtime. This is to cover clerical support for the Department of Development and Inspectional Services due to FMLA.
LMA.
It says FMLA here.
What's that?
Well, yeah.
Words mean,
Medical leave act.
Leave it.
yeah, federal, okay. Federal,
Emily Medical Leave Act.
Family, sorry.
Too many initials.
any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So voted. Thank you. Finishes transfers. We don't have any minutes tonight, which, once again, we've got next week, Fire Department Emergency Management and Veteran Services, and I guess we've covered everything for CIP? Or we will further deliberate on that.
Library, but I think they have one line item in
And fire.
fire.
And fire, which will be here. So we'll be looking at those and hopefully voting on the CIP. Having said that, I'll accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye, so voted. Thank you.